Hello guys, so we're looking at Act 4, Scene 3. Really short one. Classic short scenes. Act 4, all the way through, are very short kind of... and this is snappy then, that was awful. Very short and fast-paced scenes. All the bad stuff happens in Act 3, and then Act 4 is kind of preparing for Act 5. Obviously Act 5 is where the tragedy really kicks off and everything goes to pot, really. So we start with immediately after the previous scene where Juliet had asked the nurse to come with her to kind of prepare for the wedding day. Remember, Juliet's kind of playing along that she's going to be completely with it and kind of doing everything that her father says. Dramatic irony, we know that's not true. So she says, I pray thee leave me to myself tonight. And then she says, I have many orisons to move the heavens to smile upon my state. So orisons means prayer, basically. And the fact she's saying she's got many prayers to make to move the heavens to smile upon her state, obviously context that, you know, religion and God was used as a way of redeeming and asking for forgiveness. But also, I think a more important point about this is that if you remember Act 2, Scene 6, just before they get married, the friar says something very similar at the beginning of that scene as well. So we're seeing a kind of structural mirroring, a kind of structural similarity, where he said, so smile the heavens upon this holy act. And it was the first thing he said. And he said, oh, he wants the heavens to smile upon it. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be great. And she says that she needs the heavens to smile upon how she is right now. Romeo is never seen in this scene. He doesn't speak at all in Act 4. So think about where the focus is for us as an audience. Who is the focus during this act? They have got rid of everything they don't need, and they've kind of really, brought it down. Because you remember, the wedding was on Thursday, and that was soon, and then Capulet has brought it forward even more. So then we see this line, look here, let me now be left alone. All but one of those are adverbs or verbs. So we get this verb phrase where, so we see this kind of desire to be left alone, to be left isolated, to be left completely independent and away from everything else. So there's also that adverb now, that just like Romeo, she doesn't live in, the past, she doesn't live in a way of looking forward, of foresight. She lives in the now. She lives in the present. It's always about now, the most important thing to her. So it's always about the present, and obviously that links to our character theme for her, which is impulsive, which obviously mirrors Romeo as well. When we see that she is left alone, it perhaps isn't even a good thing for her. So it's foreshadowing that she is not going to react well to being alone, but also that she is about to be eternally alone, that she's not going to see Romeo again, that she's not going to see her parents again. This is the last time she sees anyone conscious. So when Lady Capulet and the nurse leave, it's the last time she sees anyone conscious. There's a kind of a very short interaction between her and the friar in Act 5. Lady Capulet and the nurse leave. She starts off by just saying goodbye, farewell. God knows when we shall meet again. And that is absolutely true in terms of context. That they're not going to meet again physically, but obviously in the time, people will believe that you will meet again in the afterlife. Though, of course, audience would be unsure if she was going to go to heaven or to hell, because she has sinned quite a bit in this play. She says she has a cold, faint fear that thrills through her veins, and it almost freezes up the heat of life. So again, we've got foreshadowing, the idea that something is going to freeze up the heat of life, and it might not be this vial, but it will be the death that happens later on from star-crossed lovers take their life. In fairness, this vial does it mimics death, and it it makes someone seem as if they're dead, so it could also foreshadow that. But it's as if she's starting to feel death already, before anything's even happened. She's just starting to feel it come on. This kind of innate human feeling of foresight, almost. The idea of kind of premonitions that were big in Elizabethan England. Now we then see something that's throughout this. We see internal conflict, heavy internal conflict. She says, I'll call them back again to comfort me. So she calls for nurse, and then she thinks, hang on, what would she even be able to do here? So she calls back to that kind of maternal instinct that the nurse would be, caring and looking after her. And then she realizes, actually, no, there was a reason I'm doing this on my own. She doesn't know what I'm about to do, because she wanted me to marry Paris instead and just give up Romeo. She called Romeo a dishclout. He's just a dishcloth compared to Paris. My dismal scene I needs must act alone. So we've got the very kind of forceful modal verbs there. I must act alone. There is no choice here. She has to do it. So she's just been hesitant. She's just been unsure. She's asked for the nurse to come back. The nurse doesn't hear her. But now she's gone back to being completely and utterly confident. I must act alone. She also calls it a dismal scene. She knows that this is a dark thing to do. She's faking her own death. She doesn't think this is all jolly and lovely and normal. She is well aware how extreme this is. But she's absolutely willing to do it, because she's impulsive and she wants to be with Romeo more than anything else. So she takes out a vial, and of course, we've spoken quite a bit about Shakespeare not really including many stage directions, and that when he does, it's important. So she takes out this little vial, this little kind of dram of liquid, and she then starts to question again internal conflict. What if it doesn't work? Does that mean I've got to get married tomorrow morning, and that means I've committed bigamy, which means I'm going to go to hell, which means even in the afterlife I wouldn't be with Romeo? There's all these different scenarios and thoughts running through her mind right now. Then she takes out a knife and puts it down beside her. So now she's got the vial and the knife both at her disposal. Very similar to what we saw earlier. And this is where she makes the choice, basically. So as we go down the page, we see she's even questioning the friar. And remember that the friar and Romeo are the only two people she trusts right now. And even her trust in the friar is maybe starting to crack a bit. She says, what if it be a poison which the friar subtly hath administered to have me dead? So we spoke about the idea that she's done something that the friar shouldn't have done. He's done something that he shouldn't have done because of these two. He's arguably married them because of his hubris. And we even see that when he says, oh great, this could end the war between the two families. This would be great. And possibly kind of touching on some of the deadly sins there of kind of pride and, marrying people for love, which again at the time was not what happened. And she's kind of arguing with her own subconscious here. Look, I fear it is, and yet methinks it should not. Now, then a load of other scenarios come into her head. She says, how if I'm laid into the tomb, I wake before Romeo comes to get me? So remember, she's going to be buried alive. Now again, buried is not kind of the right word. She's going to be put into the tomb. So every rich family would have their own huge tomb where all their ancestors are. You wouldn't be burying in the ground. So that's where she will be put once she is found. But she's thinking, actually, wait, what if I wake up before Romeo comes to get me? And now I'm going to be surrounded by all my dead ancestors. Now, obviously, you can think about who's died recently in the Capulet family, who will be in there. And it will not be a pretty sight. And she actually mentions that. So she says, that's a fearful point. And shall I not be stifled in the vault? And from here, we see a much darker semantic field coming through. We get the semantic field of death and rotting and of, the breaking down of flesh and all these kind of horrible ideas in these semantic fields as we go down. It gets darker and darker and darker all the way through. So think about it. It starts off with, oh, what if it doesn't work? Oh, wait, what if the friars poisoned me? What if I wake up? What if, all these bodies are there? And they kind of, her mind's going in a darker and darker place throughout this. She talks about that the air will be foul and there won't be healthsome air. And what if she chokes on the air inside? Because it's obviously going to be kind of almost palpable with death. There's going to be, bodies in there and bones and rotting flesh. So what if she chokes kind of on the on the stench of the dead bodies. So it's getting pretty dark for her. Bear in mind again, she's a 13-year-old girl. And she's going through this in her mind, panicking about this. So where bloody Tybalt, yet but greening earth, lies festering in his shroud. So I'm going to see him, and he died the other day, and I'm going to see his body start to decompose. The decomposition process is going to be underway, and I'm going to see him covered in blood. Not going to be nice. She also says, what if I wake up and all these smells and stuff, it drives me mad? And she starts to madly play with her forefathers' joints. So, she wakes up and goes mad from the smell, and she is possibly never saved, and she's left in there to die and to be buried alive, and she just ends up playing with the bones of her forefathers, of her ancestors, because she's so mad. And eventually, she also says, pluck the mangled Tybalt from his shroud. So what if she picked up Tybalt from his, from his horrible festering decomposition, and, she touches him and holds him and whatever. And she then says, as with the club, dash out my desperate brains. So she's implying there that, does it mean that if she goes so mad, she would beat herself to death with a bone of one of her ancestors, possibly Tybalt? Really, really dark. And also we get that, the aggressive verb there, dash. It's not just, I will die, it's I will dash out my brains. And again, not just brains, desperate brains. That she is feeling desperate. We are getting so close to the edge at this point that she is willing to consider killing herself through hitting herself with her ancestors' bones. A horrible way to go. So then she starts to think that she's seeing Tybalt's ghost. Now, obviously, there is no person playing the ghost, so we can assume that it's just kind of her hallucinating or playing out the scenario despite not actually seeing anything. But she says that she sees kind of him chasing Romeo. Look, it says, seeking out Romeo that did spit his body upon a rapier's point. And she kind of, begs him to stop. Then she calls out for Romeo, and then she says, here's drink, I drink to thee. And she takes the drink and falls upon her bed within the curtains. And that's it. She's faked to death. And obviously now, it's only a matter of time before she's found, and the plan is underway. Okay, that is it for today. So, told you it was a short one. Though, of course, my editing will probably be 12 hours long. Any questions, let me know. And in the meantime, stay safe. Bye.